Here's Brody Brazil.
Okay, it's the old 2 for Tuesday, as in 2 videos recapping yesterday's SB509 hearing in the state of Nevada. That's right, 6+ hours of hearing on this very important Senate bill, which could give the A's $380 million worth of public money from the state of Nevada and from Clark County to build a $1.5 billion ballpark. Again, all of this presented on a Friday, heard on a holiday Monday. It's the one and only public hearing that it's going to have. And yeah, I consumed it all yesterday, in addition to covering an A's win that stopped an 11-game losing streak all at the same time. And so, yeah, 2 videos. I forgot to mention that part. This is one. These are my takeaways. This goes into detail of some of the big picture stuff, but I'll go into the finer points. The other video is kind of like a highlight compilation. I'll play some other clips that you may have missed, some of the bigger clips, and I'll react to those moments. So in no particular order, maybe we'll start with the big picture point here. The way things played out. The A's were represented by Jeremy Aguero, who works for a company called Applied Analysis. He is an analyst and an economist, and I believe a lawyer by nature, not an employee of the A's, but working for them. And also Steve Hill, who's the CEO, I believe, of the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. There's a lot of other labels in there, but a very important person. Those 2 represented the A's. That was it from the A's side of it. They were questioned for several hours, and there were lots of good questions by senators and assembly folks about SB 509. And it didn't seem like a landslide either way. One side, for or against, was not really beating up on the other. Again, I think the nature of the questions was really good. I mean, very thoughtful. There was some research done. You could clearly see where there was opposition to SB 509. And I think you could also clearly see some people with little opposition. They were just getting the little nuggets of clarification that they needed along the way. So if I had to guess, coming out of it last night and even waking up this morning with, a fresh brain, with some energy, because that really takes it out of you, 6.5 hours. It was hard to know either way how a vote would look right now. If they were to take it right now, which they're not, they still have a state budget to figure out. SB 509 also has to be passed along. It has to pass this committee to get to the Assembly and the Senate. I'm learning all this stuff about Nevada law, by the way. It's really hard to know one way or the other how a vote would look. I honestly can't tell you. And I also realize, I'll make this last point, sometimes in these settings I've learned in politics, senators, assembly people, lawmakers in general, they ask very tough questions, like they seem to be going against it, and then they vote for it. But they just wanted to do diligence and, ask the tough questions. So hard to predict. I know that's what everybody's wondering. What's the outcome? Which way did it sway? I really cannot tell you. I will say you could see the opposition was clear, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. This was all happening, as I mentioned, on a holiday, but here's the other part of it. It was coinciding with a game where if the Las Vegas Golden Knights hockey team won, they did beat the Dallas Stars, they would advance to their 2nd ever Stanley Cup final. What a distraction. This is a meeting about public finance, but also largely ingrained with the sports community in Las Vegas. And sure enough, these 2 things were happening simultaneously. Now, was that a distraction? Or was that a motivation to some politicians who are like, ooh, sports, everybody's excited about sports. We're talking about sports. I like this. I want more of this. I don't know. I can't speak for them. I would think that they're separate, but the distraction or motivation factor in general definitely exists. But I think the other thing is there's just a rushed nature of all of this. Almost hard to believe. Like Las Vegas and Nevada, they're get-to-yes places. But literally to have something presented on a Friday, heard on a holiday Monday for 6.5 hours on Memorial Day. Granted, now what's the difference if it's Monday or Tuesday? I don't know. But certainly some people had this way off their radar as their holiday was more important than, tuning into this like I did yesterday. Okay, this was one of the first things that caught my eye as like, whoa, this needs to be put out there because it's new information. A Las Vegas ballpark for the A's at the site of the Tropicana Hotel is now projected, and I believe Mr. Aguero said that the wording he used was optimistic. I forget the exact word, but this is what they're hopeful for. A ballpark would now open in 2028 instead of 2027, which was, I don't want to say promised, but that's the year, that's the date, that's the number that's only been out there so far. 2028 had never really been talked about, and now here we are with the language presented, and it's 2028, which is unprecedented for 3, but I'm going to say really 4 years of inconvenience. Because if you pass SB 509 and the A's are under lease at the Coliseum for 2024, first off, what's that year going to be like? From a business sense, from a player sense, but then there's going to be 3 years of inconvenience of, let's be honest, playing at some minor league stadium somewhere likely in the West. Now, you're saying, well, isn't it going to be Las Vegas Ballpark, home of the Aviators? Yeah, most likely. But I've also heard from the Sacramento mayor, did an interview on Sacktown Sports, is that the new branding of the radio station there, KHTK, saying that he said there have been talks that Sutter Health Field, I almost said Raley Field because I'm old school, but Sutter Health Field, a.k.a. Raley Field, would be, and it is equipped to host the Oakland A's for a couple years as a temporary spot. But just 3 years of that now. You're talking about 24 at the Coliseum, 25, 26, and 27 in some kind of minor league ballpark. There's no other big league ballpark waiting to go for the A's. Unless, can you make a deal with the Angels? Can you share Angel Stadium? Can you share Dodger Stadium? Can you share Petco? No, I don't know that you can. I really don't know that you can. I'm speaking wildly here. You could see the inconvenience this creates. And MLBPA, the Players Association, they can't be thrilled about this. This is not a temporary landing spot. This is not 1 year, we'll get through it, we'll trudge through it. No. This is 3 full years after kind of a funeral year in 2024 if this all goes through. You're playing at minor league facilities. Your players and their families are going to have to relocate to a city that's not fully equipped, like at least Oakland is for the most part. And also, it's not great for the business of baseball. Any minor league city that Major League Baseball would be played in for 3 full years is not great. So I know some people might say, well, you're making a big deal out of this. They'll figure it out. Some other people are going to have some things to say about this if, in fact, this is how it's going to go. I don't know that there's also, what's a really good plan B to that? I don't know that there is one. Okay, how about the relocation fee, which I was pretty sure was promised by Commissioner Rob Manfred late 2022. If the A's relocate to Las Vegas and if the A's are able to arrange a private-public partnership, the relocation fee, which we believed was $500 million, like everybody's been using that number. But apparently it's not believed. Well, it's not a for sure thing. It's now believed to be promised. Oh, I take it back. I can't even read my own presentation here. It was believed to be promised. But now Jeremy Aguero says he's hopeful. And he also quoted a $300 million fee for Major League Baseball. So we're going from something this is significant, right? A perk that I thought was promised. I think everybody believed it was promised under these circumstances. And now Jeremy Aguero saying he's hopeful. But the number comes down to $300 million, which is also new information, I think, to a lot of us. But the hopeful part is new information. And let me just say, this is the A's in a meeting asking for, $380 million of public money that they say they need if a $1.5 billion ballpark is going to be constructed. So you understand, the magnitude of 380 is significant. This is a deal breaker. If you don't get this, I don't know how else you do it. So what happens if all of a sudden forget 500, what if it's just 300? How much is that going to set the A's back in even being able to accomplish this? And I know some of you are saying, well, wait, why would MLB owners vote and say it's okay to not have a relocation fee? That's customary. If you don't do it here, you're basically removing the precedent of even having that. And it just goes away forever because the next team that wants to move is going to say, hey, nope, we don't do that. They didn't do it. So I can't answer that. I don't know why MLB owners would do that. Maybe because it gets to expansion quicker. Maybe because they know the expansion fee is still $2 billion a pop. So maybe, all right? But I don't think that this one is, if this isn't figured out, it's interesting. It's new information from yesterday. What is Clark County's actual involvement? Not what people are promising for them with the state, but what is Clark County's actual involvement? One of their chair people did speak up and say that they're in on this, but that's the only one. And it's been really, really quiet on the Clark County front. Clark County, by the way, is the southern tip of Nevada. It's all of the biggest entities, cities, and regions in southern Nevada. They're all in Clark County. This is a big county. This is by far the state's biggest county. Clark County is supposed to provide just straight up $25 million for infrastructure improvements for the Tropicana Hotel site. They're also the ones that are responsible for floating $120 million in general obligation bonds. Now, Clark County, are the ones who implemented the county hotel tax to help build Allegiant Stadium, a 0.88% hotel tax that is in the process of generating $750 million for the Raiders and Allegiant Stadium. But they had to dip into the reserves, not once, but twice. And yes, part of that was because of the pandemic. But they had to dip into that twice, and that's why they are a little bit reserved about doing this all over again. And nobody really got to represent Clark County in direct questioning, but it was brought up a few times by the assembly people and the state senators. Are they actually good for this? Are they okay with this? Because currently they are operating in what's known as functional debt. As in, they're in the red, and it's planned to be in the red, but they are still in the red. Is this a really good idea for them to actually partake? And to be quite honest, that still remains a question that I don't think anybody has an answer to. But if they're not good for this in one way or another, or if taxes go up big time because they were forced into this, it's not a great situation. I would say all of this in the presentation last night, it would have been so much easier if this were the A's of 3 years ago. And I say that on two fronts. The 102-loss season last year, on pace for 131 losses this year, and attendance down to 2,000 at some games, and maybe in reality even less than that. If this were the A's 3 years ago, they weren't a bad performing team. They were coming off the heels of a couple 97-win seasons in a row, and this would have just greased the wheel a lot more. And also, what's happened with Oakland in the last 3 years. There was really nothing brewing there. But then all of a sudden, 2021, things start brewing in July 20th, the famous or infamous term sheet vote by the city council. Really the first time Howard Terminal had been actually brought up. But the way things played out in the Oakland and A's relationship together, it also casts a different light now in the present. If this were 2019 and this was all being brought up and, hey, Oakland hasn't even moved on this, Las Vegas would have just jumped right in. But because of the A's struggles on the field, because of their complicated relationship with Oakland, I just think this process is not as oiled up. The wheel is not as greased as maybe it would have been 3 years ago. What if this doesn't pass in Las Vegas? That was a direct question asked by somebody on the panel. Now, it was said that the A's, Mr. Hill said this from the Las Vegas and Convention and Visitors Authority Bureau. I'm just making it up, the actual title. But Mr. Hill said that the A's would pursue moving to other cities. They would not wait around for Las Vegas if SB509 doesn't pass. Now, I played the clip several times. When he says other cities, does that mean other cities than Las Vegas? Would that mean the potential? But nobody was saying that the A's were anywhere near the thought of what would happen next. They don't have a plan B for this. I don't know if Oakland is another city. I know the word move to other cities was also part of that sentence. But it's a pressure technique. You know why? Because Salt Lake City exists. Orlando exists. I guess Charlotte exists as a city that's trying to lure Major League Baseball. People talk about Austin. Portland's had a group for a long time. Montreal's out there. So, I mean, is this a pressure technique in presenting SB509 that no, we can't rework this. We're not going to, this is it, take it or leave it. That part is uncertain. And what if it doesn't pass? Is there a second chance for this? Also uncertain. It reminds me a lot of the two propositions in California last year for sports betting. I thought one or even both of them would pass. Neither of them did by an overwhelming amount. Now, I'm not correlating that to this, but the deal is that those two items can pop back up again on the next ballot. In this case, the question is being asked, would the A's, be willing to revisit this in a different way if it doesn't pass? I think the two things we learned, the clear answer is no. This is the opportunity, take it or leave it. But the other part of it is, what do they do next? That was a little unclear, other than it's going to be somewhere else than Las Vegas. Okay, in terms of community benefits, this is a question I've had the entire time because it was such a conversation with the A's and Howard Terminal in Oakland. What would a community benefits package look like? How much would it be? Where would the dollars come from? There was criticism here in Northern California that the project would generate all of the community benefits money, and that wasn't enough for some people locally here, which I still don't understand. Money is money, and that was part of the perks. But I digress. There's a homelessness benefits program that would be started or implemented for the resort corridor. And I can't speak to the problem that they have. Certainly they're bringing this up, so I don't know the magnitude of the problem, but certainly it exists. And it exists unfortunately, in a lot of large and medium-sized cities across our country. But the homelessness benefits program is really the only community benefits that are part of this deal. In fact, Mr. Aguero was asked, well, what are the benefits? And he said, well, you'll have to ask the team about that. They did make part of the presentation about the A's Community Fund, which I will speak to. I will speak for. They've been great in the city of Oakland over the years. They've been financially helpful to a lot of meaningful causes. But what they do and the dollar amount they do is nowhere near where something should be for a brand new project and collaboration like this. I mean, you got to come with, like, if you come to somebody's house for dinner, you typically bring a side, right? Or you bring a bottle of wine. You bring something. In this case, it's like my presence is the gift. My presence is the present. Again, not to knock the A's Community Fund. I know a lot of people that are at the top of it firsthand, and I appreciate their efforts. And they make a difference here and now. But if you're going to a party, you got to bring something big. And the homelessness benefits program, to me, granted, not a Las Vegan, not a Nevadan, it's a little self-serving. Yeah, we want to clean up this area and this area alone because this is a problem that's going to face our project in our backyard. So we'll clean this up because we don't want this problem here. So there's that part of it. There's also the other part of it. The contributions, the money to this only happen, as Mr. Aguero detailed. And I want to make sure I got this right. I believe his exact words were that the money to this only happens if the project overperforms. And he was honest about that, which I appreciate. But it kind of leaves this as a, number one, self-serving part of the deal, but it also leaves it as kind of a misleading part of the deal. Okay, they are projecting only 95 total events annually at this Las Vegas baseball stadium at the Tropicana Hotel site. Now, they're still promising 2.6 million, I don't want to say visitors, but guests in attendance annually. 2.6 million fans, let's say, or tickets sold across 95 events. Do the math, 27,368 per event. Now, if you have a one-off concert or a one-off, but WrestleMania is not going to do that, right? Like, if you're going to go big, you're going to go to Allegiant Stadium and 70,000, 70,000. If you need something smaller, you're going to go to T-Mobile Arena at 17,000, 18,000. You need to have 27,368 per event if you're dividing 2.6 million by 95. I mean, will the A's get that in year one and maybe year two? Like 28 and 29 now? Honeymoon period, probably. But you got to sustain that for 30 years. I could show you the list of major league teams that are struggling. Cincinnati, Detroit, Cleveland over time. Cleveland has shaved 10,000 seats off their stadium. That's pretty lofty to say we're going to fit 27,368 over and over and over and 95. So here's how you fix this. You either need to do way more than 95, like I've suggested. You need an additional 30 events after baseball. That gets you way over 100. Gets you 110 range, I guess. You need at least that to make sure that you just keep taking those tickets, generating revenue to pay back those bonds. So this this runs the risk, right, of success versus attendance. And if the A's, the primary operator of this ballpark, or the primary tenant, so to speak, if you aren't successful and you don't make sure that you're successful, like the project is not successful. And I'm just saying here, like, I can't speak to being an economist, but I can speak to being a sports person and a baseball person, and it is hard to be that good year after year after decade after decade. Like, this is a dreaming mentality that you will do that number every year from here on out. Because nobody else does it here. I mean, every year, right? Maybe some of the biggest markets, if you're the Dodgers or the Yankees, but Las Vegas is not one of those two places. Okay, we have arrived here at the last slide. My gut instincts. I saw enough things questioned and enough holes in SB509 for it to be defeated, but I'm not telling you here that that's my gut instinct. It was not ironclad by any means. It was also not Swiss cheese by any means. There are enough things and perks in there, and especially catering like that SB509 caters to Las Vegas and Nevada and their get-to-yes attitude. It floats enough things out there to say, ooh, well, all right, one vote and that's it. Essentially, one process and that's it. So those two things need to be established. The line of questioning, hard to know. Intelligent questions, tough questions, but that's what you're there to do. You're not there to float soft toss and say, here, how fun is this going to be, guys? Your thoughts. So tough questions were asked, but I don't know that represents any kind of a vote, how it would stand right now. There's also this, which I think is important, as much as that relocation fee for baseball either happening or not, as a roadblock or not, or do you come up with that 300 or 400 or 500 million if in fact it exists? But the Nevada state budget is a highly partisan issue. As I'm recording this right now, unless it gets resolved today, the Democrats have come up with a state budget. The governor has yet to sign it. The Democrats say if you don't sign it, and we have to go to special session, we're not doing anything else after June 5th for special session. We're only doing the state budget, and we out. We out. I got to keep it light, right? They're not into it unless the state budget gets passed. So Democrats, Republicans at odds over the state budget. That could play a factor. That could spoil SB 509. That could spoil the Sony Pictures request of $200 million of public funding for their project. I mean, it could spoil a lot of things that are on the table. But if the budget gets squared away, and you kind of like to know the budget before you hand out $380 million, but if the budget gets squared away, and if this gets to Major League Baseball, relocation fee or not, I think Major League Baseball approves it. And that's the end of the A's in Oakland. And I don't want to sit here. I've said I'm not a journalist. I'm also not who could be an expert on sports and politics and economy and construction. I can't be the expert of everything. I'm just trying to take the best of what I know. And if SB 509 gets through, I mean, I think we're going from, if it's 90-10 right now, maybe 95-5. If this gets through, it's 99 point something %. I mean, then you're waiting on the vote by MLB. And the only thing that they might throw in would be going against the relocation fee, it would be having the relocation fee, which Commissioner Manfred says wouldn't exist, but maybe they'd want to take that back, which I thought was odd that he promised that as early as he did last year anyway. But I think we can all see the scoreboard is what it is. And I don't want to sit here and lie to you and give you false hope about all this, but I think it's pretty clear to see that we're near the end of this process. We're going to get an answer on this pretty soon. And if their answer is yes, we know the future of this baseball team would no longer be in Oakland. All right, that's the end of the video. You made it here all the way to the end. Thumbs up for that, which I really appreciate. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that I can see you next time. And oh yeah, can you guys keep the comments civil, please? See you next time.